The attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, a day that'll live in infamy. In the 1920s, America had just won the biggest war they'd ever been in. It was a time of celebration where money was no object. This celebration and time of freedom would soon come to a halt. On October 29th, 1929, the stock market had crashed. This day will forever be known as Black Tuesday. Due to many investors selling their stocks, many businesses were unable to stay afloat, causing the business to lay off many of their workers, forcing men to panhandle for any job that they could find. Over 13 to 15 million Americans were unemployed at this time. This caused an uproar, and many Americans started to protest at their local town halls and governments. Many poor and unemployed parents could not afford to support their children anymore. Angry Americans who could not afford to feed themselves anymore were forced to stand in bread lines for hours upon hours just so they could get food for their families. Americans who were unable to afford the house that they were living in at the time came to these towns called Hoovervilles. FDR gave Americans hope with his New Deal. Then, on December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked. Pearl Harbor is a naval base on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, that is home to many of our nation's naval ships. The reason for why the Japanese decided to bomb Pearl Harbor was that they wanted to disable America's fleet of naval ships. At around 7:55, hundreds of Japanese fighter jets came over to attack Pearl Harbor. At their attack, they managed to destroy 20 naval ships, 8 huge naval ships, and destroyed 300 airplanes. This attack killed over 2,000 Americans and injured over 1,000. During the attack, one unnamed soldier stated, "I was the last man to leave the secondary aft because I looked around and there was no one left. I followed the major down to the port side of the tripod mast. The railings as we ascended were very hot, and as we reached around the boat deck, I noted it was torn up and burned. The bodies of the dead were thick and badly burned. Men were heading for the quarterdeck, only to fall to apparently death or badly wounded. The major and I went between number 3 and number 4 turret to the starboard side and found Lieutenant Commander Fuqua ordering the men over the side and assisting the wounded. It seemed exceptionally calm, and the major stopped. They talked for a moment. Charred bodies were everywhere." But America would not allow this to affect them. That day, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had asked Congress to declare war on Japan. With a one-vote deciding vote, they decided to declare war on Japan. As a result of this, Germany and Italy both backfired and declared war on America. The next day, Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave his infamy speech to America. Some quotes from his speech include: Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through the absolute victory. This speech gave Americans hope that they could do anything. This speech gave Americans hope that they could come back from this horrible time of Great Depression and also time of mourning for the lost and loved ones. America's response to this attack on Pearl Harbor was to do anything that they could to help with the war effort. And this meant enlisting in the war, growing victory gardens, and scrapping metal, doing anything that they could to help with the war. Another one of America's responses to the attack on Pearl Harbor was the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This devastated Japan and forced them to surrender. More African Americans and Hispanics than ever would soon enlist into the war. And for the first time, even women would enlist into the war. America's economy was finally restored. Everyone was doing what they could to help with the war, and all jobs were restored. Even women and children were doing all that they could to end this war. America would go on to fight in World War II and end up winning.